Real Cuff Radio is about to begin.
Everybody loves a hero. I believe there's a hero in all of us.
Welcome to Real Cuff Radio, and I'm excited tonight because we actually have two people on the line. One is one of the lawyers at the ADF. His name is Kevin Terrio, and the other one is Chief Cochran, which you may have seen a video about him on Facebook, or you may have read something in the newspaper. But basically, he has been fired for his beliefs. And so, Kevin, would you mind telling us a little bit about the Alliance Defending Freedom?
Sure. Alliance Defending Freedom is a nonprofit legal organization. It's an alliance of many different organizations that defend the right of people to believe and to live out their faith. And we do that on a number of different levels. But one of the ways we do it is take cases like Chief Cochran's for free, and people who have had their religious liberty restricted. In Chief Cochran's case, he was actually fired because of the religious convictions he expressed in a Bible study book, and we defend those with an eye towards not only helping Chief Cochran make sure his rights are protected, but also establishing precedent so that others like Chief Cochran can live out their faith.
I read some of the bio stuff on y'all about 80% of winning in your cases, and it looks like you've done a lot of work in the Supreme Court over the last 7 years.
That's exactly right. And just this year, we won 2 Supreme Court cases, one on behalf of the Jack Phillips, who has Masterpiece Cakes and was being forced to make a cake and participate in a religious ceremony for a same-sex wedding that would have violated his convictions. And then we also won on behalf of some pro-life pregnancy centers in California who were being forced to refer for abortion. So God has really blessed us, not only in the past 7 years with about 9 victories, but just recently we've had 2 victories just this very term, and we're very, very pleased and honored and humbled by the fact that God was able to use ADF in that way.
Chief Cochran, one of the things that amazed me is, first of all, I mean, I saw that you were chief, fire chief over in Shreveport, and then you were fire chief in Atlanta, and then Obama took you up to the highest office there is.
That's correct. I have had what I like to call a childhood dream come true fairy tale career, in that I was only 5 years old when I was smitten by a fire across the street from where we lived, that I wanted to be a firefighter. The grown-ups told us that our dreams are going to come true in our country if we believe in God and get a good education and respect grown-ups and treat other children like we wanted to be treated. They said in the United States, all of our dreams would come true. And in my case, that's certainly what happened. I became a firefighter in 1981 and advanced through the ranks and became the fire chief in Shreveport in 1999, and then a couple of years in a stint in Atlanta, and then the highest office in the American Fire Service. I was appointed to the United States Fire Administration, and about a year there, and I was recruited to go back to Atlanta under Mayor Kasim Reed.
I mean, you've had one heck of a career. This book, you wrote a book, and this was just for the man in your Bible study at church. Is that right?
Yes, sir. It actually started from a small group Bible study that I was going through at church called The Quest for Authentic Manhood. And that question, the title of the book, Who Told You That You Were Naked, is the question that God asked Adam in the Garden of Eden in Genesis chapter 3. And I was just so curious about that question. I was just wondering, was God asking Adam more than who told you you don't have on any clothes? And so it was the research into that question that led to so much material that I decided it would be helpful not only to the men at my church, but really Christian men in the body of Christ as a whole. And that's when I decided to publish it in a book. And, of course, I did all that research on my own time and published it with my own funds and, before, as it relates to the publishing of the book.
Let me ask you about that book. Now, is it available for anybody to order?
Yes, sir. It is available on Amazon Books. Who Told You That You Were Naked? Of course, there's a couple of books with that title, so they would want, if they want my book, they'd have to look for my name, Kelvin J. Cochran. But it's also on the website of 3gpublishinginc.com. That is the self-publisher or the publishing company that published the book, 3gpublishinginc.com.
The reason I ask that is because anytime they're really fighting to suppress something, it tells me that every church in America probably needs to order some copies of your book and use it for a Bible study, because every time they try to take something away, that means there's got to be a real gold nugget in there.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you saying that. Really, the essence of the book was dealing with Christian men who still struggle with condemnation, and that's the vast majority of us. When men have a transgression, as we sometimes do, we have this tremendous sense of being overwhelmed, of guilt and shame, and that we'll never be good enough to please God, when the reality is Jesus solved that problem for us on Calvary. And so the book is addressing how do we overcome condemnation after we've been, clothed with Christ. And but in the book, I just simply talk about one of the greatest challenges that many Christian men still wrestle with, and that's sexual sin. And I simply explain that from a biblical standpoint, that God created sex, and he intended it to be between a man and a woman, and to do it in a way that honors him, it has to be done in holy matrimony. And that's really the essence of what drew attention to my book by the city, and ultimately what caused me to be terminated.
Now, I know that in everything that goes on, there's always a underlining agenda. And the reason I saw this case was, I think I was on Facebook or something, and I had seen a video that was put out either by the ADF or I'm not sure. But anyway, it talked about, told your story basically, and how, your childhood dream and everything went through. Very good video, by the way, whoever did it. But then it talked about the city councilman, Alex Wan. So I did some research on him. He's in District 6, and basically his voting approval was not very high. And then he went to legislate and enforce this one. It was Chestine Bridge Road. It was to force these adult entertainment businesses out of there by rezoning it. And what it ended up doing, it included a lot of gay clubs. And so he lost all the gay votes. And it kind of looks like to me he was trying to win those gay votes back by what he turned around and did to you. I mean, that's just what it looks like on paper. So I don't know where that goes, but it kind of looked like it was all tying together. What do you think about that, Kevin?
Well, it's hard to know what his motivations were. He did say, though, in public that Chief Cochran can have whatever beliefs he wants. He just has to check them at the door when he comes to work for the city. And, of course, what that means is if you believe what the Bible says and what the majority of the three major religions teach about marriage, then you're not eligible to be the fire chief of the city of Atlanta. And that's an outright religious discrimination based upon beliefs and convictions. And the Constitution is very clear that you can't do that.
Well, the other thing about that is, I work in surgery, I work in hospitals, and if I checked my beliefs at the door, my beliefs are what drive me to have compassion and love and caring for these patients. If I checked them at the door, I would just be like anybody else that really didn't care, and let's just get the job done and do it and get out of here. So there's something really wrong with that statement itself.
That's right. And I think what's going on is at bottom here, you have some city officials who are catering to a very vocal minority, the gay folks, and they singled out just a 1 or 2 pages in the chief's book that they perceived as negative. And incidentally, if I would encourage anyone who's skeptical to go read the book. His book is not really even about marriage and not even about sexual sin. It's about the fact that men need to step up and try to live lives that are not only honoring of God, but honoring of their spouses and honoring of their children. And they singled out and took out of context several passages and pretend that that's what the book is about, and that's not what it's about at all. So certainly Chief Cochran did express the conventional beliefs among Christians and most major religions that marriage is between a man and a woman, but that it shouldn't be any kind of a constitutional crisis.
What amazes me too is that a book like that, truthfully, that's what we really need. We've got so many fathers that are leaving and so many divorces, and so people need something in their life with some stability, and that book is a perfect example of that. And then hey, let's because of that, let's destroy someone's career who. If you look at him, he is the perfect example of coming forth with, his dreams and becoming exactly what he was intended to be. And I always love those stories because you can look at him and go, well, wait, if he can do it, I can do it. And I always look for those kind of stories too, because I have a lot of the younger generation listening to us now, and I want them to understand that. If he can do it, I can do it. Even in the presidency, hopefully I've got an interview coming up with Bill Clinton. Am I a Bill Clinton supporter? Not so much. But the truth is, if he can do it, then maybe that would give another kid a chance to say, I can do it.
That's one of the whole bases of the book and really the foundation of the testimony that I share. In the United States of America, we have the rights that are guaranteed in our Constitution that we can dream dreams, and all the resources available to us for our dreams to come true are right here in the United States of America. And through patriotism and through faith, and certainly in our case, the Christian faith, anyone in America, in spite of how their life begins, even a life of poverty, as my life began with a single mom on welfare and food stamps, with faith in God and Jesus Christ, and a constitution that drives your patriotism, you can literally be anything you want to be in our country. And so to suppress the faith component, as some groups would want to do, really takes away a major leg of the American dream actually becoming a reality. And that's why it's so important for a ministry like ADF to fight on behalf of Americans who really don't have the resources to fight the government by themselves. And thank God we've won the major claims in our case, even though the litigation is ongoing. We've made a major step in not only correcting the wrong that was done to me, but what it means is no government employee would ever have to go through what I went through with a victory that ADF is on the verge of getting.
Yeah, can you give us an update on that, Kevin, exactly what you won?
Sure. The great news is that the court, without having to go to trial, said that the city of Atlanta violated Chief Cochran's rights when they fired him for not getting permission before he wrote this book, and said that the policy that was in place was unconstitutional, and that they had unbridled discretion, which basically means it left them free to discriminate against Chief Cochran. And so that's the great news. Now we're at the stage of the trial where we're determining how much Chief Cochran was damaged by the loss of his career, loss of his reputation, by all of the things that the city said, and the fact that he was terminated after having such a stellar career, being the chief fire administrator of the United States and the fire chief of the year, and many accolades. Were definitely the legs were taken out from those when he was fired, and there were a lot of things said about him that just weren't true.
Yeah, I saw. Now I don't know which one I was reading, but I read the opening statement where the ADF basically compared this whole thing to the Christians as the communists of the Cold War, and I thought that was such a true statement when he was comparing back to when they took. I don't remember what year it was now, but they basically took in these ones to make sure they weren't communist. And,
right.
Unfortunately, too many people don't even know a lot of this is going on. Is there anything you need to share that besides this case that you're doing right now that people need to know?
Absolutely. ADFlegal.org, you can go there and get an update on several cases and several clients that we have that are in the same position as Chief Cochran. For instance, Baronel Stutzman in Washington near Spokane is at risk of losing her business because she refused to participate in a same-sex wedding with her floral arrangements and designs. And we also represent Jack Phillips, who is in Colorado and owns Masterpiece Cakes, and he was discriminated against. And as I indicated at the beginning of the show, we won at the Supreme Court on his behalf because the commission there in Colorado went after him because of his beliefs. And interestingly, they just even after we won at the Supreme Court and they lost, they've gone back after him. And so we're continuing to fight that fight. And we have several others around the country that are similar. And so religious liberty and the ability to live out your faith, not just within the four walls of your home, is under attack in this country.
When Obama first got in office, I started a Facebook page that was Pray for Obama and his family, because the Word of God says that, to pray for your elders, pray for your leaders. And so I started this page, which is probably one of the largest ones out there. And so I put this, when I saw that video, I put this video up of Chief Cochran, and you would be amazed at how many people, first of all, had never heard of it, but they were just shocked. Mm-hmm. They were shocked that this could happen in America.
That many people aren't aware of this, that this kind of thing goes on a regular basis. And the great thing about the most recent case that the Supreme Court came down with, the Masterpiece Cake Shop with Jack Phillips, is Justice Kennedy, before he retired, said you can't single out Christians because of their beliefs about same-sex marriage and be hostile to them as a government and equate their beliefs with Nazi Germany. You can't, as a government official, do that, and there's definitely an attempt to do that, not only within some parts of the media, but also by government officials across the country. And the Supreme Court has said pretty clearly that that's unconstitutional, and so we're very hopeful.
Chief Cochran, in your wildest dreams, could you imagine this was ever going to happen to you?
No, sir, not in our country. Growing up in Shreveport, Louisiana, the culture there was so pro-faith. I mean, people just openly and boldly lived out their faith, even government officials. And I can recall it as fire chief in Shreveport. I was often asked to speak in churches and wear my uniform, at Men's Day programs and church anniversaries and religious banquets, and people, they just celebrated, a government official who, lived out their faith in their public office. And so I brought that same spirit to the city of Atlanta, expecting the same equity, the same justice. And ultimately discovered that it was not the same. And but it just shouldn't happen in the United States of America, and it certainly should not have happened in the city of Atlanta, a city who has a history and a heritage of fighting for liberties and justice and rights.
Well, just to let you know, I work in Shreveport a lot, and they still openly talk about God, a lot, especially, during the surgery cases or to patients. And so obviously they're still carrying on the same trend. But like I told some of my friends, this could happen to you. I mean, here I do a radio show tomorrow. The same thing could turn around and happen to me. Because of your radio show, we're firing you from your job because we, blah, blah, blah. So I just want people to understand that, nobody is exempt from things like this happening. And I mean, especially when you look at your case, I mean, Obama took you up to the top position, and this still happened to you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so it could really happen to anybody. But the good news for you, though, is if they do fire you from your job for doing your radio show, you got a first-hand connection with Kevin Terrio, the lead attorney in my case, who can come to your rescue.
That's good to know, because who knows? I mean, you never know what tomorrow has. Kevin, I have to say, okay, I know y'all do these cases for free. Is there a way that people can help support you or, support the organization?
Absolutely. As I said before, adflegal.org is the place to go. You can not only learn, educate yourself about your rights and about the rights of your family and your grandkids and your coworkers, and you can also learn what you need to be praying for in this country and also around the world. And of course, if you would like to support us financially, we provide all of our services free of charge, and any little bit helps, and you can do that online too.
Yeah, because people listening need to understand some of these cases can run millions of dollars.
That's exactly right. Yeah, the justice is expensive oftentimes, especially in situations like this, where when you have rights that are really invaluable at stake, and that in this case could have a profound effect for a lot of different folks across the country who want to be able to speak up and not be punished for what they say at their job.
Chief Cochran, do you have any final words that you want to tell?
Well, I would just like to end my remarks by sharing with your listeners that whenever it comes down to a choice of keeping your job and living out your faith, always go with living out your faith. When it comes to a choice of living out your faith or keeping your business, always go with living out your faith, because God will always prepare his sons and daughters to face persecution. And he's chosen us for these major tests so that we can demonstrate in these days and times that there are still men and women who are Esther's and Shadrach, Meshach's and Abednego's and Daniel's who really stand on their faith. And it gives God an opportunity to show himself strong on our behalf, and to know that God has lifted up a standard, and he's using a law firm like Alliance Defending Freedom, really a ministry like Alliance Defending Freedom, to stand up on behalf of his sons and daughters who have the courage and faith to stand.
Well, Kevin, I guess what do you have to say here at the end? And I don't want to keep y'all too long, but I sure did enjoy you coming on, and I hope that somebody out there can take this information and really pass it along, do something with it, and not just, it's just another show.
Well, and we really appreciate you having us on and the opportunity for Chief to tell his story and let people know that not only should they take the chance to educate themselves and go to adflegal.org. But they hopefully will be motivated to do something about it. And if they, a medical professional or a professional that's a firefighting professional or who's been threatened with their job because of what they believe, call us. Give us go online and be willing to take a stand. I tell you, I just would like to close with the fact that it's been a privilege to work with the chief these past couple of years. He is a motivation for me because he was willing to do and say what he needed to, what he felt like God wanted him to say, no matter what the consequences were, and it's always a privilege to stand with people like that.
I also want to mention, too, your radio podcast show. I talked to you about it before we came on. It's called Freedom Matters, and it should be under any of the podcasts. But I have not personally listened to it, but I read some of the different shows and thought, well, I'm going to start listening next week because, truthfully, we need to educate ourselves better on what is going on. We need to help promote and stop a lot of this stuff before it does take away our freedom.
That's exactly right, and that's a great way to do that. That keeps you up to date on all the cases going on around the country and around the world where religious freedom is at risk.
Well, Chief Cochran and Kevin, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and I'm going to say that's a wrap.
Hey, this is Real Cuff, and I want to thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. YouTube completely removed our channel for a couple of years, but now we're back. Thank you.